This is Pulse of Africa, the face of Ethiopia, the voice of Africa.
Hello viewers, I'm Gamachisa Mandida with the Pulse of Africa news and our top stories. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres arrives in Ethiopia. President Taye calls for genuine partnership to achieve African aspirations. Turkish President holds talks with Pakistani Prime Minister. The price of gold has set a new record. First, the summary news. Prime Minister of Barbados Maya Motley arrived in Addis Ababa to attend the 38th African Union Summit to be held in Addis Ababa. Upon arrival at Bole International Airport, Premier Maya Motley was warmly welcomed by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Similarly, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has arrived in Addis Ababa this morning to participate in the 38th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union. Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, Workneh Gabayo, is leading the IGAD delegation at the 46th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council of the African Union in Addis Ababa. IGAD said in a statement that this gathering not only tackles the long-standing issue of reparations for historical injustices, but also emphasizes the importance of ensuring that Africa's resources benefit the African people. IGAD looks forward to the new leadership and reaffirms its commitment to supporting the African Union in fulfilling its mandate. Now in Sudan, the Sudanese Foreign Minister, currently on an official visit to Moscow, said he is grateful to Russia for its support in the United Nations Security Council. Ali Yusuf Ahmed al-Sharif, speaking during a joint press conference with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, said that attempts to pass a resolution in the Security Council that would pave the way for international UN forces to intervene in Sudan were blocked by Moscow. Sudan and Russia have also reached an agreement on the establishment of a Russian naval base on Sudan's Red Sea coast, Sudanese Foreign Minister Ali Yusuf stated. To China and Africa ties, Beijing is building space alliances in Africa to enhance its global surveillance network and advance its bid to become the world's dominant space power. China has publicly announced much of this space assistance to African countries, including its donations of satellites, space monitoring telescopes, and ground stations. The Egyptian Satellite Lab is the latest advancement in China's overseas space program. On the outskirts of Cairo, a cutting-edge space lab was supposed to be the first in Africa to produce homegrown satellites. The satellite facility is the centerpiece of Space City, a complex being constructed about 30 kilometers east of Cairo. Now, the news in detail. 5 countries, including Ethiopia, have been elected to serve as members of the African Union Peace and Security Council following a vote on Wednesday. The election was held during the 46th Ordinary Session of the African Union Executive Council, which commenced yesterday. The mandate of the 5 African Union Peace and Security Council member countries will end on March 31st this year. The rotating 5 seats were therefore up for grabs when the Executive Council convened in Addis Ababa. Ethiopia was among the 5 countries elected to the Peace and Security Council, which is described as recognition of the country's contributions to peace, security and development across the African continent. The other newly elected African Union Peace and Security Council member states are Cameroon, Eswatini and Nigeria, whereas the election for North Africa was postponed after the candidates failed to secure a 2/3 majority vote. The newly elected members will assume their seats at African Union's top peace and security decision-making body on April 1st, 2025. The Peace and Security Council is the standing decision-making organ of the African Union for the prevention, management and resolution of conflicts. It is a collective security and early warning arrangement intended to facilitate timely and efficient responses to conflict and crisis situations in Africa. Ethiopia's President Taye Askeselassie has called for genuine partnership to achieve African aspirations. Foreign Minister Gideon Timotheus hosted a dinner on Wednesday evening at the Addis International Convention Center to honor foreign ministers attending the 46th African Union Executive Council session. President Taye Askeselasi, the chief guest of honor, emphasized the need for unified efforts among member states to advance Africa's peace, stability, and unity amid shifting global geopolitics and geoeconomics. He affirmed that Ethiopia will continue to commit to work towards realizing Africa we envision, an Africa that is peaceful, stable, and self-reliant. Foreign Minister Gideon emphasized that the African Union's theme, Justice for Africans and People of African Descent through Reparations, highlighting multilateralism's role in addressing global challenges like climate change and pandemics for Africa and the Global South. The chairperson of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mohammed, and several foreign ministers graced the dinner reception. Botswana and Nigeria's foreign ministers urged African nations to collaborate on developing African solutions to African problems. The foreign ministers of Botswana, Fenio Butali, and the foreign minister of Nigeria, Yusuf Tagar, who are participating at the ordinary session, emphasized the great importance of collaboration among member countries in order to effectively realize the principle of African solutions to African problems. The two foreign ministers have also expressed optimism about fulfilling the unrealized aspects of the continental agenda. The ministers also expressed their hope for the implementation of Agenda 2063.
The face of Ethiopia, the voice of Africa. This is Pulse of Africa.
Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan met with Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif in Islamabad to discuss a range of bilateral issues. Turkey's president, accompanied by a high-level delegation, arrived in Pakistan's capital late Wednesday night on a two-day visit to discuss how to boost trade and economic ties between the two nations, officials said. Erdogan will have bilateral meetings with Prime Minister Sharif and will sign several agreements for boosting trade and economic ties between the nations, officials confirmed. Turkey's president is visiting Pakistan at the invitation of Sharif, according to a statement released by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Finally, the Kremlin said on Thursday that the Russian and U.S. presidents have instructed their aides to immediately begin preparations for a face-to-face meeting between the two leaders following a recent phone call. Dmitry Medvedev, deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council, underscored the importance of the recent talks between the presidents of Russia and the U.S., calling them a crucial step after years of diplomatic silence. The two heads of state agreed during their telephone conversation that they would maintain direct contact, focus on arranging a separate meeting, and immediately instruct their respective aides to begin the necessary preparations. On Wednesday, Putin and Trump held their first phone conversation since the U.S. president took office last month, discussing key global and bilateral issues, according to statements from both the Kremlin and the White House. That's all for today, and Buzwayo is ready for the business news.
Hello viewers, I'm Zoya Bogala with the latest business news. Ghana missing $156 million in state budget after US aid freeze. Countries around the world are still reeling after US administration's crackdown on its largest development and humanitarian aid agency, the USAID. The loss of U.S. development aid has also been felt in Ghana. The country now lacks $156 million in its state budget. Ghana's President John Mahama has asked Finance Minister Cassiel Ato Forson to find ways to close the gap in funding left behind by the freeze of USAID programs, according to a statement from the President's office. American development aid has been crucial for Ghana's health and agriculture sectors. The price of gold has set a new record, reaching $2,900 following a fresh batch of tariff threats from U.S. President Donald Trump. Fears of trade wars and geopolitical uncertainty appears to have boosted gold prices. Following Trump's economic moves and rhetoric, gold has climbed a record high. The gold price gained 30% in 2024, setting new highs along the way. Experts say that this points to a desire for a safe asset. On Monday, gold broke above $2,900 per ounce for the first time. It extended gains Tuesday to hit a new peak above $2,942 per ounce. Trump signed proclamations late on Monday, reinstating a 25% tariff rate on steel from all countries and raising tariffs on aluminum to 25% from his previous 10% rate. That's all the business news for today, and thank you for joining Pulse of Africa.
This is Pulse of Africa, the face of Ethiopia, the voice of Africa.